After 17 years with Atlas Software, we're repositioning your role, Linda Shepard announced, her voice carrying a barely concealed note of satisfaction that made my stomach tighten. She sat across from me in the sleek glass-walled conference room, flanked by Bridget from HR, both of them wearing carefully crafted expressions of corporate sympathy that didn't reach their eyes. The company is embracing a more agile direction, Linda continued, glancing at the motivational poster on the wall that read "Innovation comes from youth," a new company motto that made my blood simmer beneath my composed exterior. Bridget swiped through a tablet screen before turning it toward me. Your contributions have been valuable, Eleanor, but we're integrating the architecture division under the product development team's leadership. I nodded thoughtfully, barely glancing at the digital severance package. Inside would be the standard parting terms: 2 weeks for every year of service, continued health coverage for 3 months, and a list of career coaching resources I would never touch, all presented in sterile corporate language that masked what was really happening. I completely understand, I replied, my voice steady while my mind raced with calculations. Strategic realignments are never simple. Relief washed across their faces. They'd clearly expected tears, protests, or anger. After all, I was a 58-year-old woman being pushed aside in the tech industry, where youth was worshipped while experience gathered dust. What they couldn't see was that I had anticipated this moment for weeks, ever since I discovered a misdirected email thread in my cloud backup containing discussions about my transition. We'd like you to complete knowledge transfer by Friday, Linda continued, gaining confidence from my apparent acceptance. We'll need your access card, company devices, and all credentials before departure. Your team will be informed this afternoon. My team, 6 brilliant developers I had personally recruited and nurtured through the years. The same team that had helped me create the quantum flow algorithm that now powered Atlas Software's flagship product, DataSphere enterprise software used by nearly half of Fortune 500 companies. Of course, I said, rising from my chair, feeling the weight of my accomplishments that had been so casually dismissed. Is there anything else required? They exchanged glances, clearly thrown by my composure. Linda recovered first. That's all for now. Thank you for handling this professionally. As I walked through the open office space, I passed the executive conference room with its transparent walls. Through the glass barrier, I could see CEO James Reynolds gesturing animatedly at a presentation titled Q3 Revenue Projections. The same James Reynolds who had presented my algorithm at last year's Tech Summit, introducing me merely as one of our architecture team members. I returned to my workspace and discreetly pulled out my personal phone, my fingers trembling slightly with anticipation as I sent a single encrypted message: plan activated. Friday departure confirmed. The response appeared almost instantly, perfect timing. Documentation prepared. Farmers market tomorrow to discuss details. I smiled as I glanced at my calendar. Today was Monday. Friday I would walk out of Atlas Software for the final time, and next Monday. Monday would be absolutely fascinating. The following evening, I met Marcus Caulfield at a small cafe tucked inside the bustling Pike Place Farmers Market, 20 miles from Atlas Software's headquarters. As the CEO of Innovatech, Atlas's most formidable competitor, Marcus understood the value of discretion. We blended perfectly among the shoppers and tourists, our important conversation hidden in plain sight. They actually went through with it, Marcus said, shaking his head after we ordered our coffee, his eyes reflecting both disbelief and opportunity. I suspected they might, but to discard the very architect who created their core technology. James never truly grasped what I built, I replied, taking a sip of my water, feeling a mix of frustration and vindication. He appreciated the user interface, the implementation, the marketing angles, but the underlying architecture, that was just technical mumbo-jumbo to him. The irony was almost poetic. 3 months ago, I discovered that the patent application for my quantum flow algorithm had never been filed by Atlas Software's legal department, an administrative oversight, they'd claimed when I inquired, their voices a little too casual. They assured me they'd handle it immediately, but something in their evasive responses felt wrong, prompting me to dig through the company's cloud storage. That's when I found it, a confidential strategy document outlining plans to claim the algorithm as proprietary company-developed technology without specific inventor attribution. They had plotted to ease me out before securing the patent, knowing that intellectual property developed by employees typically belonged to the company that employed them. What Atlas Software hadn't anticipated was that I had been developing significant enhancements to the algorithm during evenings and weekends, using my personal equipment at home. These improvements, which boosted processing efficiency by 51%, weren't covered by my employment agreement. I had quietly filed for a patent under my own name last month, meticulously documented with timestamps and development logs that clearly demonstrated the work was completed outside company hours. The patent had been granted with exceptional speed thanks to Marcus's connection to a renowned IP attorney. All the legal documentation is finalized, Marcus said, sliding a tablet across the table displaying the contracts. Once you sign digitally, Innovatech officially secures exclusive licensing rights to your patent. We'll hold an online press conference Monday morning, introducing you as our new Chief Innovation Officer. I reviewed the documents carefully, though I'd already committed the key points to memory: a 7-figure signing bonus, substantial equity in Innovatech, and ongoing royalties from all products utilizing my algorithm, recognition I had earned through years of innovation. Can you imagine James's expression when he realizes what's happened? Marcus asked, unable to hide the glimmer of satisfaction in his eyes. I'm more worried about my team, I admitted, feeling a pang of protectiveness. They shouldn't suffer because of corporate politics. Marcus nodded reassuringly. Already taken care of. We have positions ready for all 6 of them if they're interested. Senior roles with significant compensation increases. I signed the final page and handed back the tablet. In one strategic move, I had secured my future, protected my team, and ensured recognition for my work after years of being overlooked. To innovation's true value, Marcus said, raising his coffee cup. And to recognizing who creates that value, I added, touching my cup to his, feeling both the weight and freedom of this watershed moment. Thursday and Friday passed in a whirlwind of knowledge transfer sessions, digital handovers, and farewell conversations with colleagues. I maintained my professional demeanor throughout, even as speculation spread across the company channels. Administrative staff sent supportive messages in the company chat. Junior developers approached awkwardly in the break room, asking if I'd provide online recommendations before my departure. I documented everything meticulously, every project, every access protocol, every development pathway, knowing full well that Atlas Software would soon discover just how essential my expertise truly was. My decision to provide comprehensive transition documentation wasn't generosity, it was strategic evidence, proof that I had acted professionally while the company had not. During my final exit interview on Friday afternoon, Bridget from HR methodically worked through the standard corporate checklist, her eyes rarely meeting mine. You acknowledge that any intellectual property developed during your employment remains Atlas Software property, she stated, sliding a digital non-disclosure agreement across the sleek conference table. Absolutely, I replied pleasantly, feeling oddly empowered. Anything developed within the scope of my employment, using company resources, during compensated hours. I emphasized those qualifiers slightly, but Bridget was too focused on completing her procedural tasks to register the significance. And you confirm you possess no copies of proprietary company information? I have retained nothing that belongs to Atlas Software, I confirmed truthfully, a quiet satisfaction warming my chest. The patent was legitimately mine, after all. As I collected personal items from my workspace, family photos, conference credentials spanning 17 years of industry evolution, the custom coffee mug my team had gifted me last holiday season, Linda appeared, leaning against my cubicle divider with practiced casualness. Just checking that everything's set for your transition, she said, watching me place items into my canvas tote, her eyes calculating rather than concerned. Everything's perfectly clear, I replied, carefully wrapping a small crystal award I'd received for the very algorithm now central to my strategy. The irony wasn't lost on me as I nestled it between protective layers of tissue. You know, Eleanor, these organizational realignments are strictly business decisions, Linda continued, her voice attempting warmth but failing. James believes the company needs to embrace a more innovative direction. I looked up, meeting her gaze directly, feeling my decades of experience in my unwavering stare. I understand completely. Business evolves. Something in my tone made her hesitate. For a brief moment, uncertainty flickered across her face, but she quickly dismissed it. What threat could a soon-to-be unemployed 58-year-old woman possibly pose? Will you be taking a sabbatical? She asked with manufactured interest. Actually, I've already secured a new position, I replied, feeling the weight of my secret knowledge. I begin Monday. Surprise registered in her expression. That's remarkably quick. Anything noteworthy? I smiled, tasting the sweetness of my carefully planned future. Very. An executive leadership role. I'm genuinely excited about the opportunity. She nodded distractedly, already mentally moving to her next task. Well, best of luck with that. As I walked out of Atlas Software's gleaming headquarters for the final time, access card surrendered and personal belongings in hand, I paused to look back at the building where I'd invested 17 years of innovation and dedication. From the ground, I could see the executive suite illuminated for an evening strategy session, undoubtedly discussing how to redistribute my responsibilities among younger, less experienced, and significantly less expensive personnel. They couldn't possibly know that in less than 72 hours, that same pristine conference room would instead be hosting an emergency crisis meeting. Monday morning dawned crisp and vibrant. I dressed carefully in my new tailored charcoal suit, a power ensemble I'd purchased specifically for this milestone day. The Innovatech hybrid sedan arrived precisely at 7:15 a.m., the driver navigating us efficiently through Seattle's morning traffic toward my new beginning. The press announcement went live across all platforms at 7 a.m., Marcus informed me as I settled into my spacious home office, setting up my workstation for the virtual onboarding. Industry news sites are already running with it. Our communications team is tracking reactions and social engagement in real time. The announcement had been crafted with strategic precision. Innovatech secures exclusive rights to revolutionary quantum flow processing algorithm, welcomes creator Dr. Eleanor Hudson as Chief Innovation Officer. It detailed my background and credentials, emphasized my role as the sole inventor of the now patented technology, and outlined how Innovatech would be integrating the algorithm into their next generation of enterprise solutions. Most significantly, it clearly stated that any organization currently implementing the technology would need to negotiate licensing agreements with Innovatech moving forward. At precisely 9:12 a.m., my phone lit up with an urgent message from my former team at Atlas Software. Complete chaos unfolding here. What masterpiece did you orchestrate? It was from Zachary, my senior developer. I felt a surge of satisfaction as I replied, check your personal inbox. All 6 of you have offers ready and waiting. Meanwhile, across town at Atlas Software headquarters, the scheduled Monday morning executive meeting was undergoing a dramatic transformation. According to Zachary's detailed updates throughout the morning, James had arrived at the office to find the company's legal counsel and chief financial officer waiting anxiously outside his office, their expressions grave. The industry announcement had hit their inboxes simultaneously, triggering immediate alarm bells throughout the executive floor. By 9:30 a.m., what should have been a routine start-of-week status meeting had escalated into an emergency crisis session. Board members were joining virtually from across the country. The legal team was frantically reviewing my employment contract and all documentation related to the algorithm's development history. They're pulling every digital file with your signature on it, Zachary reported through our secure messaging channel. Someone just ordered the IT department to restore all development server backups for forensic analysis. I could visualize the scene with perfect clarity, James pacing the glass-walled conference room, demanding explanations from Linda and the legal department, his face flushed with anger and disbelief. The stock price would already be responding to the news, investors despised uncertainty, and our announcement had created an abundance of it. At 10:38 a.m., an email from James himself appeared in my inbox, the desperation practically radiating from my screen. Eleanor, there appears to be a critical misunderstanding regarding proprietary technology. Please contact me immediately to discuss resolution options. I forwarded it directly to Innovateca's legal department without response, feeling strangely calm as the storm I'd meticulously planned unfolded. By noon, the tech industry was buzzing with analysis and speculation. Atlas Software's stock had dropped 8.5% since market opening, while Innovatec had seen a 14% increase. Multiple technology publications had requested exclusive interviews about the strategic coup that had disrupted the enterprise software landscape. How are you feeling on this momentous day? Marcus asked, appearing in my video conference window as I organized my digital workspace. Validated, I replied honestly, my voice betraying the depth of emotion I felt after years of quiet frustration. 17 years of watching others present my innovations as their own, of being told I should feel fortunate just to have a place at the table despite my contributions, and now, finally, proper recognition. My new executive assistant appeared on my video screen with a notification chime. Dr. Hudson, the development team is waiting in the virtual conference room. And, she hesitated slightly, Atlas Software's CEO has called repeatedly in the past hour. Please inform him I'm in strategic meetings all day, I replied with newfound authority. Our legal department will reach out regarding licensing options later this week. As I prepared to join my first meeting as Chief Innovation Officer, my phone vibrated with another update from Zachary. Board just called emergency executive session. James looks like he might shatter the conference table. P.S. My entire team enthusiastically accepts your offers. When can we transition? By Tuesday morning, the full impact of my strategic move had become unavoidably clear to everyone at Atlas Software. Their flagship product, DataSphere, depended entirely on my algorithm to process the massive datasets that gave them their competitive edge. Without licensing rights to my patent, they faced two equally unpalatable options: negotiate with Innovatec or rebuild their core technology from scratch, a process that would consume years and millions in development resources. James has scheduled a company-wide emergency meeting for 2 p.m., Zachary messaged. It was his final day at Atlas. He and my former team would be joining Innovatec the following Monday. The rumor circulating is they're planning legal action against you. I forwarded his message to our legal department, who responded within minutes, let them proceed if they choose. Your documentation is unassailable, development logs, digital timestamps, personal equipment usage logs, all thoroughly documented. We've anticipated this reaction. Meanwhile, I was adapting to my new position with surprising comfort. The professional respect I received at Innovatec stood in stark contrast to my final years at Atlas. When I spoke during virtual meetings, people actively engaged with my ideas. My concepts weren't repackaged by younger male colleagues and presented as their own innovations. My decades of experience were valued as critical assets rather than outdated liabilities. The development team is implementing your algorithm enhancements, Marcus informed me during our afternoon video briefing. Initial testing shows a 57% performance improvement, significantly better than our projections. I developed several substantial refinements I never shared with Atlas, I admitted, feeling a blend of professional pride and vindication. After discovering their plans to eliminate my position, I saw no reason to contribute my most advanced innovations. Their short-sightedness becomes our advantage, Marcus replied with quiet satisfaction. Interestingly, our first licensing inquiry arrived this morning, not from Atlas yet. They're still processing the situation, but from CloudSphere Technologies. They're concerned about potential disruption to their integration systems. At 3:25 p.m., Zachary sent a detailed account of James's company meeting. The CEO had attempted to project confidence, assuring employees that Atlas would aggressively defend our proprietary technology, but the tension in the room had been unmistakable. Several staff members had already begun updating their professional profiles online, sensing the company's precarious position. Linda looked like she might collapse when someone directly questioned whether legal had actually secured the patent. Zachary reported with barely contained satisfaction. James abruptly terminated the Q&A session after that bombshell hit the room. By Wednesday, the industry repercussions had intensified dramatically. 3 major enterprise clients had contacted Innovatech about transitioning from DataSphere, expressing serious concerns about Atlas Software's ability to maintain their critical systems without the algorithm's creator. Our stock had climbed another 9.5%, while Atlas continued its market freefall. I received a video call request from Bridget in HR, the same woman who had slid that digital severance package across the conference table just days earlier. Her carefully composed professional expression couldn't hide the tension in her face. "Eleanor," she began, her voice rigidly controlled, "I'm reaching out regarding the situation with your patent filing. The executive team believes there may have been a miscommunication about intellectual property rights." "I don't believe there's any miscommunication whatsoever," I replied with the calm confidence of someone holding a winning hand. "My employment contract explicitly states that intellectual property developed during personal time, using personal resources, remains the inventor's property. The patent documentation, timestamps, and development logs verify exactly that." James was wondering if you might consider coming in to discuss potential arrangements. "Any discussions would need to be directed through Innovatech's legal department now," I responded, feeling strangely liberated. "They'll be happy to schedule a meeting to discuss licensing terms and conditions." The silence on the other end spoke volumes about their desperation. Finally, Bridget sighed audibly. "I'll communicate that to leadership." That afternoon, I led my first formal presentation to Innovatech's board of directors through a hybrid meeting setup, outlining our technology roadmap with my quantum flow algorithm as its cornerstone. As I presented confidently from the center screen, not relegated to a supporting role as I had been at Atlas, I noticed Marcus's appreciative nod of approval. By Friday, barely 1 week after I had walked out of Atlas Software for the final time, the company had descended into full-blown crisis mode. Their stock had plummeted 26% from Monday's opening bell, triggering alarmed calls from major investors and analysts. Technology journalists were publishing analysis pieces with headlines like "Can Atlas Software Survive the Algorithm Crisis?" and "How Undervaluing Senior Talent May Destroy a Tech Leader." Through my industry network, I learned that James had finally acknowledged the gravity of the situation to the board. Atlas would need to either license my algorithm from Innovatech, likely at premium rates that would severely impact their profit margins, or undertake a complete rebuild of DataSphere without utilizing any technology covered by my patent. They've begun recruiting interviews for an entirely new development team, Zachary informed me during our Friday video conference discussing his team's upcoming transition to Innovatech. James is publicly claiming they can recreate comparable functionality within 6 months. I couldn't suppress a genuine laugh at the absurdity. The original algorithm took me 3 years to perfect, and that was with intimate understanding of the problem domain. "Precisely," Zachary agreed, his eyes reflecting the industry-wide implications. "No one's buying the timeline fantasy, especially after your entire team submitted coordinated resignations. The institutional knowledge exodus is catastrophic for them." That afternoon, Atlas Software's legal representatives finally initiated contact with Innovatech to open preliminary discussions about potential licensing arrangements. Our legal team, implementing the strategy we had meticulously developed, responded with terms that were technically equitable but strategically challenging, 3 times the standard industry licensing rate, plus a mandatory public acknowledgement of my role as the technology's original creator. "They'll resist the public acknowledgement far more than the financial terms," Marcus predicted as we reviewed the proposal in our virtual strategy session. James's reputation couldn't withstand publicly admitting he pushed aside the very architect who created their foundational technology. "Then they'll be forced to rebuild from scratch," I replied, feeling the quiet confidence of someone who knows they've made the right chess move. "And every week they waste attempting to replicate my work is another week we extend our market advantage." The following Monday morning, just 10 days after my unceremonious dismissal, I hosted the first hybrid meeting with my newly assembled innovation team, which included Zachary and the other 5 developers from Atlas Software. The creative energy in both the physical conference room and virtual spaces was palpable as we collaboratively mapped the next evolution of my quantum flow algorithm. "This is how true innovation happens," commented Olivia, one of my former team members, her enthusiasm evident even through the video conference. At Atlas, we wasted half our development sessions explaining fundamental concepts to executives who were scrolling through their phones. "That's the fundamental difference between being valued as innovators versus being treated as replaceable resources," I replied, feeling genuinely appreciated. "Here, your technical expertise is recognized and respected." As we concluded the productive session, my assistant's notification appeared on my screen. "Dr. Hudson, there's been a significant development at Atlas Software. Their board has just announced an emergency leadership transition. James Reynolds is stepping down as CEO, effective immediately." The news spread like wildfire through tech circles. Within hours, industry publications were reporting that Atlas Software's board had lost confidence in James's leadership following the patent oversight that threatened the company's flagship product. Linda Shepard was also removed, along with the head of legal who had failed to properly secure intellectual property rights. That evening, I received an unexpected email from Diana Foster, Atlas Software's newly appointed interim CEO. Unlike James's desperate message from the previous week, this communication was straightforward and respectful. "Dr. Hudson, congratulations on your new executive role. I've been appointed to help Atlas Software navigate through this challenging transition period. I would like to discuss equitable licensing arrangements for your patented technology. We're prepared to publicly acknowledge your contributions and make appropriate amends for the oversights of previous management. Would you be available for a virtual meeting next week?" I forwarded the email to Marcus, adding a simple note, "Phase 1 successfully completed." His reply came promptly, "Brilliantly executed. The board is celebrating your first significant victory for Innovatech. It appears Atlas Software is finally learning a costly lesson about properly valuing innovation and the people who create it." 3 months after my departure from Atlas Software, I participated in the National Technology Innovation Conference's hybrid keynote session. On stage physically and streaming to thousands virtually, I prepared to deliver the opening address. The diverse audience filled both the physical auditorium and virtual attendance spaces, industry leaders, technology journalists, and aspiring developers, many now familiar with my journey. "I'm honored to introduce our keynote speaker," the conference organizer announced, her voice carrying through the state-of-the-art sound system. "Dr. Eleanor Hudson, Chief Innovation Officer at Innovatech and creator of the quantum flow algorithm that has transformed data processing across multiple industries." The applause resonated through both physical and digital spaces as I approached the podium. What a profound transformation a few months had created. Last year, I had attended this same conference as part of the Atlas Software contingent, relegated to a back row seat while James presented what he called his company's innovations. "Thank you all," I began, scanning the engaged faces both in person and on the monitors showing remote attendees. "Today I want to discuss innovation, intellectual ownership, and the critical importance of properly valuing technical contributions, regardless of who creates them." My presentation explored both the technical architecture of my algorithm and the broader implications for recognition and respect within the technology ecosystem. Without explicitly naming Atlas Software, I emphasized how companies thrive when they protect and celebrate their innovators rather than treating them as interchangeable resources. During the networking session afterward, several young women engineers approached me both in person and through the conference platform, seeking guidance and mentorship. One developer, barely in her 30s, shared, "Your experience transformed how I document my work. I've implemented a rigorous system tracking all development processes during my personal time." "A wise decision," I replied, feeling a sense of meaningful impact. "Your innovations deserve protection and recognition." As the event concluded, a notification on my phone revealed an industry news alert. Atlas Software had finally formalized the licensing agreement with Innovatech, explicitly acknowledging me by name as the algorithm's original creator. Their stock had stabilized, though at a significantly reduced valuation compared to before my departure. 1 year to the day after being told to reposition my role, I sat in my elegant office at Innovatech, reviewing our quarterly innovation report on my tablet. Under my leadership, the company had launched 3 groundbreaking enterprise solutions built on my enhanced algorithm, capturing substantial market share from Atlas Software and other competitors. A gentle knock interrupted my analysis. It was Marcus, holding a bottle of champagne and 2 crystal flutes. "Happy anniversary," he said, placing the glasses on my desk. "The board asked me to share this milestone with you personally before tomorrow's public announcement. Innovatech has officially surpassed Atlas Software in market capitalization for the first time in our company's history." I smiled, feeling not triumph but a profound sense of validation. This is what happens when an organization genuinely values innovation and its creators. As Marcus poured the champagne, my assistant delivered a notification about a prestigious invitation. It was a request to deliver the opening address at Women in Technology's annual Leadership Summit. The proposed topic, Owning Your Intellectual Value: How Proper Documentation Transformed an Industry and Created New Standards. Later that evening, I met my ex-husband Philip for coffee at our favorite Seattle cafe. As we discussed the extraordinary year that had transformed both my career and the industry landscape, he smiled with genuine pride. "I always knew your work would change the industry," he said. "I just never anticipated how dramatically it would happen." "The best innovations," I replied, "sometimes come from the most unexpected circumstances." "You've become something of an inspiration across the industry," Marcus observed, noting the prestigious invitation on my screen. The narrative of the executive who failed to recognize the true value of innovation until it was gone has evolved into a cautionary lesson in corporate boardrooms throughout the tech sector. Diana Foster, who had remained as Atlas Software's CEO following the crisis, had implemented comprehensive reforms in how the company identified and rewarded innovation. Their newly established policies on intellectual property protection and inventor recognition were reportedly modeled directly after the innovative program I had developed at Innovatech. This was never about retribution, I reflected, raising my glass in a meaningful toast. It was about proper recognition, about demonstrating to the entire industry that true innovation isn't an anonymous corporate asset, it comes from dedicated individuals who deserve appropriate acknowledgement for their contributions. To valuing the creators behind the code, Marcus agreed, touching his glass to mine. As the late afternoon sunlight filtered through my office windows, illuminating the Seattle skyline beyond, I contemplated my journey with a sense of fulfillment. At 59, I had finally achieved what had eluded me throughout my professional life, not merely success, but proper acknowledgement. My name was now permanently associated with the algorithm that had transformed an industry. Precisely where it belonged.